Before humans strip down and mash their privates together, they communicate, they woo, they bargain. In this video, I want to examine American history by looking at milestones and elements of dating. What were the original male loneliness epidemics? How did our great-great-grandparents meet, date, and fall into bed? How have dating and love been shaped by technology? And will artificial intelligence play a role in our sexual futures? Plus, are boyfriends embarrassing now? Let's talk about it all in a brief history of dating. You don't need to date or be in a relationship to have great sex, especially when Bellesa exists. This women-created company is on a mission to improve your sex life. No partner needed. I love that Bellesa sponsored this video because their toys are my favorite. They're made of 100% body-safe silicone, come in the cutest packaging, and are a breeze to clean. A word of advice though, lay a towel down and be ready to change your sheets. These are some powerful toys. The Bellesa Flutter Vibe, powered by discrete series technology, mimics the sensation of oral sex with dual stimulation. There's no need for big and bulky old-fashioned massage wands thanks to the Bellesa Whisper Wand, which features 5 intense vibration speeds. As someone whose big, bulky, old-fashioned wand activated more than once in my suitcase while going through TSA at the airport, I love that I can slip the Whisper Wand in my purse. If you're looking for something other than licking and massaging, the Rose is world famous, and you've probably seen it while scrolling your favorite social media app. With its compact size and 10 silent but deadly suction modes, the Rose has earned its place as one of the most discussed toys of the year. Are you interested in trying the Rose? You're in luck. Bellesa and I are sending out free roses with every order placed through the link in my description box. If you want to find out the hype about the Rose, scroll down and sign up to my giveaway. And thanks Bellesa for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get into the history. While courtship and arranged marriages had been a prominent fixture of world history in early America, the pursuit of a companion in most of American history has deviated from that. In the 18th and 19th centuries, young people, especially immigrants and expats to cities who didn't have robust social networks, sometimes relied on personal ads when seeking mates. The first recorded American personal ad in the Boston Evening Post in 1759 asked for any young lady between the age of 18 and 23, of middling stature, brown hair, regular features, and with a lively, brisk eye. Though these personal ads weren't uncommon, women who answered them were often looked at with disdain. But during the Civil War, when lonely military men bought ads requesting correspondence and affection, women who answered were seen as fulfilling a patriotic duty. Personal ads became even more common in the late 19th century. After Leslie Fraser Duncan established the Matrimonial News in 1870 in England, she expanded to America the following year. For 25 cents, men could describe themselves and what they were looking for in an ideal woman in 40 words. Women could do the same for free. For loquacious and thorough advertisers, each additional word was 1 cent. During slow months, Matrimonial News padded its paper with fake advertisements. In addition to the possibility of being catfished, stories of murder, theft, and abandonment were juicy newspaper fodder. The potential for being scammed or seduced and left at the altar was so palpable that in many states you could file a lawsuit under heart bomb tort, hopefully generating money from personal ad-based romance scams like seduction, broken engagements, and infidelity. These alienation of affection laws gradually went away as women gained more rights, though they're still active in North Carolina. If you think modern observations about the male loneliness epidemic are new, think again. The Homestead Act of 1862 beckoned, and the federal government allotted bigger parcels of land to married couples. The loneliness of the American frontier always meant women were in demand, and the availability of faster and easier travel around American wilderness made this easier. When Washington's 25-year-old university president, Asa Mercer, wanted to attract marriageable women to the Nubile, Seattle in 1864, he went northeast and convinced 11 women, including 8 women who toiled away in the Lowell mills 73 hours a week to come back with him. Looking at continued employment in the mills, where marriage prospects were slim and the industry faltered from disrupted slave labor from the Civil War, they accepted the 15-day, 14-hour voyage to Seattle. Asa brought another 34 women 2 years later, which was profiled in Harper's Bazaar. Perhaps Asa was interested for the sake of his own love life, wrote Perry Munich, quoting a contemporary journalist. Asa Mercer himself, a self-described incorrigible old bachelor, became enamored of a young maiden of good report and fair to look upon. Without giving her the slightest intimation of what he was about to do, not even so much as a tender look or an evening's courtship, Asa invited her to his stateroom, told her he loved her enough to marry her, and opened his arms and smiled fondly upon her. The maiden laughed right in his face. Mercer did go on to marry one of the women, however, probably using the same approach. Mercer's girls inspired the 1968 television show Here Comes the Brides, which featured a young Bruce Lee in his sole dramatic English role as an adult. He played a Chinese immigrant avoiding an arranged marriage. With few options for employment and marriage, and zero options for an actual dating life, plenty of women married first and asked questions later. After the Civil War, Western states with disproportionate amounts of lonely men lured women to the frontier by passing suffrage laws and extending property rights not available to many women out in the East. When the women arrived, they were hot commodities. Some chose to fall into sex work, and others became wives. In Arizona, a group of 6 married black women, referred to as the Busy Bee Club, sourced wives from the South for lonely black minors. They helped publish personal ads and solicited women from churches. Undergirding the average American man's role in society was the ability to have and take care of a wife and children. And many personal ads of the day reflected a desire for fecundity, which continued for the next century. One black man named William J. Berry wrote in the Yuma, Arizona Sentinel in 1875, "Wanted, a nice, plump, healthy, good-natured, good-looking, domestic, and affectionate lady to correspond with. Object, matrimony. She must be between 22 and 35 years of age. She must be a believer in God and immortality, but no sectarian. She must not be a gadabout or given to scandal, but must be one who will be a helpmate and companion, and who will endeavor to make a happy home. Such a lady can find a correspondent by addressing the editor of this paper. Photographs exchanged." Willie wanted to see what he was working with. The most accessible type of photography just 30 years before would have cost $2.50 to $6 or $81 to $195 in today's money, which made it rather rare. But in the 1870s, 10 type photos were a cheaper 5 cents or about 92 cents today. The advent of personal photography, thanks to tech like the Kodak camera in 1888, made photos more expected. It was also in the 1870s and beyond that some personal ads made fun and pleasure the goal, not marriage. Plus, some papers began printing missed connections columns. Fast forward to the late 1910s, early 1920s. You've just worked 50 or more hours at a factory or spent the week cleaning up after wealthy wasps, and today is your day off. If you live in a city, you're probably one of the millions of people going to catch a 5 to 25 cent Nickelodeon or silent film. There's action, thrills, wisecracks, and even new cues about beauty and romance. Romance in cinema would only evolve to become more potent and fantastical in the years to come, but it was just one of many technological advances in the 1910s and 20s that facilitated the explosion of young people transitioning from courting to dating. In the aftermath of Prohibition, when speakeasies replaced generally male-only saloons, the privacy of such underground spaces gave young people more license to mingle. Relying on a marriage to a neighbor farmer's son or answering an anonymous advertisement seemed boring and desperate, when options now seemed abundant. Less gendered spaces, less adult chaperones and escorts, voting rights for women, cars, radios, telephones, and recreational amusement, all of which changed the romance field forever. For instance, a rise in car ownership meant getting picked up for a date in a car. Though romance novels were popular from the mid-19th century onward, cheap pulp copies and increased literacy in the 20s and beyond meant more readers fantasizing about the perfect gentleman. In 1921, the term blind date came into use as the practice grew in popularity. And on the relatively new concept of being taken out on a date to a restaurant, women had to navigate how to order.
You should order the most expensive thing on the menu. So he knows you're worth it.
If you do that, you're gonna have to put out.
Oh yeah, you'll have to put out.
In a 1920 newspaper, quoted Jan Whitaker on Restauranting Through History, if she orders cheaply and modestly, she is either very considerate or very wise. And if she says, oh, let's go home and broil a chop in my kitchenette, she is a wonder. Why does this dating advice sound so familiar? On a first date and cooking for you? Gold digging women going on expensive dinner dates was a repeated theme in 1920s media, with Whitaker writing, gold diggers also appeared in cartoons and on postcards, usually shown in a restaurant, eating and drinking freely and running up the check. So they not only took advantage of men, but their other sin included eating too much, in violation of the idea that true ladies had naturally small appetites.
And for the lady, perhaps a salad?
Perhaps not.
Relatedly, throughout this period of opportunity and options, treating emerged. Men with disposable income had money to spend on dating. Sociologists and reformers saw this exchange of gifts and entertainment for kissing and even sex as little more than prostitution. The working class women who engaged in this were called charity girls because their ambitions of flowers, trinkets, and theater tickets were too lowly for them to be referred to as gold diggers, a moniker that emerged in print in 1911 and was popularized in 1919. While gold diggers were usually showgirls on the prowl for the wealthiest spouse and full-service sex workers received direct cash for their labor, charity girls, who rarely received money, wanted to be treated with romantic gestures for fun by their dates until something permanent came along. Compulsory education, more college attendance, and co-ed classrooms in the 20s and 30s meant school dances and fraternization. The Great Depression from 1929 to 1939 caused a fall in marriage rates, but people didn't stop dating. For youth and young adults, dating guides attempted to rein in the wild possibilities in the absence of courtship structure. They encouraged girls and women to be and appear popular, as well as to not be too independent and intelligent. There was a strict emphasis on gender roles, meaning a condemnation of Dutch dating or splitting the bill. Boys and men were expected to play their role in a capitalist patriarchy by spending money, while women were expected to not threaten their masculinity and be an attractive prize. All this led to the emergence of what Willard Waller called the campus rating complex in 1937. Dating was much more competitive during this era, as young people began playing the field and dating more than one person. Claimed a columnist in 1940, no matter how pretty you may be, how smart your clothes or your tongue, if you have no dates, your rating is low. The modern girl cultivates not one single suitor, but dates, lots of them. Her aim is not a too obvious romance, but general popularity. It's interesting to me that this idea of dating as a popularity contest is a common ingredient of successful reality shows like Love Island, where being attractive to multiple people and a hot sexual commodity can lead to fame and fortune. America's entrance into World War II in December 1941 changed dating in multiple ways. The immediate explosion of patriotic sign-ups meant there were plenty of quick and young marriages, and approximately 250,000 GIs met and married women overseas, including 50,000 from Japan. The War Brides Act of 1945 allowed spouses and children to immigrate to the US until 1948. World War II's devastating death toll also meant that when 419,000 mostly male soldiers died, women found themselves with fewer dating options. They were advised by dating guides and worried elders to date many men and settle with one as soon as possible, because the pickings were slim. Claimed good housekeeping in the late 40s on a picture of a bride and groom. She got a man, but 6 to 8 million women won't. We're short 1 million bachelors. It's no wonder that marriage rates rebounded from the Great Depression era rates, and the median female married age fell from 23 to 20. As discussed in this ancient video on my channel, teenagers emulated this thriving marriage culture in the late 40s and 50s by going steady, engaging in committed, though often short relationships with their peers. The robust post-war economy and booming consumerism meant romance became more lucrative and commercialized. Daters could get tips in magazines, books, and beginning in 1947, the mental hygiene flicks of Coronet Films, which presented an ideal of white American life. Speaking Speaking of ideals, the Cold War and Joseph McCarthy's witch hunt for communists and gay federal employees increased homophobia nationwide in the Lavender Scare. When President Dwight Eisenhower signed Executive Order 10450, banning gay people from federal employment, over 5,000 people were fired. This mandated federal homophobia reverberated throughout society. Unmarried people looking for work were looked at with mistrust, making a healthy dating life and eventual marriage of convenience a key part of survival for them. In 1962, the married Helen Gurley Brown penned a book that not just influenced scores of women to try the egg and wine diet, but changed the conversation about premarital sex for a generation of upper-class, mostly white women. "Perhaps you will reconsider the idea that sex without marriage is dirty," she wrote to critical acclaim and condemnation in Sex and the Single Girl. It's no wonder she would become the long-running editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan magazine in 1965, where she turned it into a racy and sexually open publication for single career women who dated without shame. It was a new era for the average American woman in the 60s. Along with the availability of contraception, more young people than ever before attended college, where strict rules and loco parentis couldn't stop hot and heavy petting and sexual fumblings. Still, like Americans 100 years before, finding permanent companionship wasn't always easy. In 1965, Harvard undergraduates Jeffrey Tarr, David Crump, and Vaughn Morrill bemoaned the evil of the blind date and the mixer, leading to America's first computer dating service, Operation Match. Across the pond in the UK, Joan Ball had developed the world's first, named Compat, the previous year, and 2 Stanford students had analyzed punch card questionnaires for 98 men and women in the 50s, but Operation Match was more famous. Along with the Cornell dropout named Douglas H. Ginsburg, they housed Operation Match under Compatibility Research Incorporation. Reported the Harvard Crimson, they were aware that computers had been used to match people at special mixers, and they knew that some companies in Europe were making a sizable profit from arranging compatible marriages through various technological means. But what we wanted was something more permanent than a mixer, and more fun than a marriage bureau, a member of the group recalls. Operation Match's creators were described as conservative by the Harvard Crimson, but also described as plotting to overthrow a whole way of life by promising compatibility for college students in a computer code. Operation Match was also capitalizing on casual dating, with Ginsburg saying in a 1966 interview, "The questionnaire is geared towards young people in their late teens or early 20s, and for what they want in a date, not what they want for a marriage." The group's motto? "Your business is our pleasure. Your pleasure is our business." For $3, you filled out a 75-point questionnaire for yourself and another for your ideal match. Describing your race as Caucasian, Asian, or Negro, you were asked about your hobbies and sexual preferences. Like, would you want your ideal date to be sexually experienced? And whether or not you agreed that persons involved in serious dating need to be fully informed about birth control. Said one testimonial, "It was something like having an Aunt Tilly who says she has a girl for you to take out. Only this time, Aunt Tilly was IBM." On a huge Avco 1790 computer in an office that they could only use between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. on Sundays for $100 an hour. The Operation Match owners scanned questionnaires using a program designed by a friend for $100. Within a few weeks, you got the phone number of at least 5 matches. Thanks to a few publicity stunts, Operation Match had 90,000 completed questionnaire sets within 6 months, generating $270,000 or $2 million in today's money. The son of future Iran-Contra collaborator Caspar Weinberger, Cap, headed Operation Match's San Francisco office in 1966 when he claimed that the business would expand to high schools as inoffensively as possible. He said, "Perhaps we'll approach student councils or state student council associations, or maybe even the PTA." I'm trying to picture somebody offering a teenage Tinder app today and failing. The expensive nature of computer processing in the late 60s, along with immediate competition from other services, made Operation Match hard to manage. Plus, there was still the lure of human connection, like how Operation Match co-founder and main press figure Jeff Tarr found his wife on a blind date. Ultimately, the company was sold in 1968, and the technology was converted for use by colleges to match roommates. But the idea would return in a big way. Within the next 30 to 40 years, computer processed dating services would be a $500 million business. But back to that in a moment. For his role in the business, Doug Ginsburg was looked at unfavorably when Reagan nominated him to the Supreme Court in 1987, and it's one of the reasons he was rejected, but also because he was token doobies in the 60s. For average Americans at the end of the late 60s who doubted the power of technology and or didn't want to spend $3, dates could be found through family, at work, at your place of worship, at school, and in new social arenas. For instance, Alan Stillman opened the first TGI Fridays in New York in 1965 to attract single women, especially with the introduction of Ladies' Night. Said Stillman, "I don't think there was anything else like it at the time. Before TGI Fridays, 4 single 25-year-old girls were not going out on Friday nights in public and with each other to have a good time. They went to people's apartments for cocktail parties, or they might go to a real restaurant for a date or for somebody's birthday, but they weren't going out with each other to a bar for a casual dinner and drinks because there was no such place for them to go." TGIF, which expanded across the country, inspired a bunch of copycats. This would trigger an ongoing trend of quote-unquote fern bars for women in the 70s and beyond, where upscale gay 90s style decorations and good food and drinks made women comfortable enough to stop by and meet single men, who may have been one of the 3 million owners of the book How to Pick Up Girls by Eric Weber. This 1968 book is one of the most influential works of the so-called seduction, aka pickup artist community, and the beginning of the mind games era of dating, where navigating being seduced for your loins instead of wooed for a relationship became a necessary skill for many single straight women. Relatedly, as charted in this video on my channel, a pimping mindset in regards to relationships began spreading in the late 60s and early 70s in the Black community. In a more sexually liberated world, the concept of seducing, lying, love bombing, manipulating, and or deceiving for sex became more widespread. This would impact how people dated and dealt with heartbreak for decades to come. Personal ads also rebounded in the mid-60s after a lull from the 30s to 50s. The Village Voice began publishing them in 1965, providing a space for gays and lesbians to search for mates, and providing a blueprint for underground newspapers. The popular and highbrow New York Review of Books started up its personal ads column in 1968, with the first titled Wife Wanted. And in 1975, Marilyn Appleberg began editing Singles News, a bi-weekly romance paper in New York, just one of many specialized publications that could be found in the decade. With the availability of contraception for single women in 1967 and the advent of second-wave feminism, dating culture again changed in the 70s. People were still getting married, but waited later to do so, and were willing to divorce and start dating all over again if things didn't work out. Maybe you'd bump into the love of your life at a bar or the mall. Maybe you'd end up on one of the newest dating shows. Astrology, which bounded into mainstream popularity in the late 60s through the 70s, made asking someone their sign a common question for potential mates. Linda Goodman's 1968 book, Sun Signs, was the first astrology book to hit the New York Times bestsellers list. 10 years later, Love Signs provided a basis for modern ideas about astrological sign compatibility. For daters of the era, looking to the stars for romantic insight may have brought comfort and provided answers for a breakup or misconnection. Behind the scenes, psychologists studied human relationships to learn more about compatibility. Explains Zoe Strimple, compatibility is now central to our ideas about love, but interest in it emerged from the use of personality testing by psychologists. Researchers studied compatibility with increasing zeal in the 1960s. In the 1970s, psychologists tried to quantify the secret sauce of relationships. A novel VHS dating service, Great Expectations, launched in 1976 thanks to 26-year-old Jeff Ullman. The company sent out nearly 1 billion mailers across the country in its heyday, saying things like, "No more wasted time in singles bars, no more losers."
Do you have friends or relatives who are single? You've probably heard them complain about the difficulty in meeting really terrific people. So what do you tell them? Do you recommend a good singles bar? Do you try to fix them up again? There is something that works. It's called Great Expectations.
At Great Expectations, you simply look through member profiles and find someone you'd like to know better without wasting a lot of time. When you find someone interesting, you take a look at their videotape. It's comfortable, it's confidential, and it's that simple. All you really need are Great Expectations right from the start.
Reported Michael Waters for Vox. By 1986, Customers were paying $625 for the lower tier, a 6-month plan where people could only submit their own cassette tape but not browse through the others, and $2,000 to both submit a tape and browse other people's. By the end of the company's life, prices had gone as high as $3,790 in some cases for a multi-year subscription. That was a lot of money, no doubt contributing to Great Expectations and similar VHS dating services having a reputation of being for desperate people.
Lowered Expectations may be for you. Our video library is packed with thousands of chronically rejected singles just like you.
Dating continued on a casual trend in the 70s and 80s. Finding a compatible partner meant the late teens and early 20s were now more frequently associated with dating. The laid-back atmosphere of college campuses meant casual sex and cohabitation were on the menu, along with going Dutch. Nostalgic observers yearned for the strict, gender-dictated rules of the 50s. But, wrote Beth Bailey in 2004, adults who advocated the old system as somehow sexually safer, however, had selective memories. The days of promiscuous popularity were also the days of petting parties, and young people had worried endlessly about how far to go with a date. And who knew whether a stranger parked on a dark road would listen to a young woman's firm but polite no. This general American hearkening for a return to 1950s conservatism is what floated Ronald Reagan to the White House in the 80s, but as we discussed in Intellectual Does the 80s, the new independent woman, along with more opportunities in finance and career, again changed dating culture. For instance, a 1989 report on law journals publishing personal ads for lawyers at big firms said that because they were expected to bill 2,200 hours a year, that they didn't have much time for singles bars. Along with your studies and careers eating up social time, plus the chance that your preferred suitor was just trying to fuck you and had read Ross Jeffries' How to Get the Woman You Desire into Bed, the dating field was further complicated by the abundance of options and more refined preferences. Whereas 90 years previously, William in Arizona would have picked a plump lady from a stack of tintypes and letters to marry as soon as possible, the daters of the 80s and 90s were cruising an ocean of options. Travel was easier, wages were up, correspondence was quicker, and there were more things to do and places to go. Think malls, bars, nightclubs, and restaurants. Gone in most areas were racial restrictions that segregated daters in previous decades, making the dating field even more diverse and populated. The 80s were also the perfect decade for meeting someone on a phone chat line, though it was pretty expensive and not always guaranteed to be authentic.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I have blonde.
I'm 6'1", dark hair, blue eyes.
With selective introductions, you make the choice or leave your own introduction and receive calls from those interested in you.
John Bode and Scott Smith launched Matchmaker Electronic Pen Pal in 1986, a bulletin board system that later became Matchmaker.com. In the late 80s and early 90s, casual sex took a hit from HIV/AIDS, and evangelical youth were targeted with purity-based dating propaganda, but marriage rates overall were still falling. In 1992, Baptist pastor Gary Chapman wrote The 5 Love Languages, How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate, which would become a major yet disputed component of secular dating rituals in the decades to come. Seriously, everybody asks nowadays, what's your love language? Well, you can fake Pastor Gary Chapman. Newspaper personal ads continued to be popular in the 90s, and multiple studies in the decade contextualized the ways that this dating method was used. Men were more likely to emphasize physical characteristics and female fertility, while women wanted financial security and height. Both groups tended to seek non-smokers, showcasing America's growing contempt for tobacco culture. Other studies showed that lesbian personal ads placed less value on physical characteristics, while gay men and gay personal ads tended to care about physical traits on par with heterosexual men. A 1995 study of 900 personal ads found that women got less demanding and selective in their personal ads with age, while men became choosier. Digital dating profiles offered a way to be even more choosy. Match.com was conceived in 1993 by Gary Kremen and Peng T. Ong in San Francisco and has the distinguishing feature of including services to LGBT communities in its original business plan. The company launched in 1995 and remained active ever since.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the internet is just another way of being rejected by a woman.
A variety variety of DIY services followed, most prominently Yahoo Personals in 1997. While Yahoo Personals required an additional subscription, relatively free and highly niche chat rooms offered another way to meet people.
Pamela and Nathan met online in one of the many chat rooms of the network.
He basically came into the room that I was in and basically started conversations. We started talking to each other every night. We must have stayed online with each other for quite a few hours at a time, just talking, getting to know one another.
Your chances of making a love connection online are turning out to be better than in the local newspaper or a bar.
You don't get to meet each other right away. You don't get to hop into bed right away. You really get to know each other, and you write these wonderful love letters, and you develop yearning.
From this ad, I've gotten responses from over 400 men, and I've actually even gone out with 20 of these guys.
In 1998's You've Got Mail, Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks' characters met in an online chat room and fell in love. This online dating ecosystem, like the rest of dating, was based on a foundation of heterosexual whiteness. Described Marisol del Teso Craviado in 2008, rooms such as bisexuals, 30s love, gay 40s, lesbianas, or mas de 40, more than 40, although religion and ethnicity are also important criteria in the AOL chat rooms, where we can find rooms such as Jewish singles or Asian singles, the distribution of dating chat rooms predisposes participants to highlight certain aspects of their identity, makes gender and sexual identity salient, and reinforces social arrangements and ideologies of gender, sexuality, and age. The criteria reinforces heteronormative and racial expectations, since the default participant is heterosexual and white, and deviations from this must be specified in the name of the room. We do not find, for instance, a room called Caucasian Singles in contrast to African American singles or Asian singles, nor a room called Heterosexual 40s. Speaking of race, dating options and realities for Black women were stratified by location and class, which you can learn about in Lectual Does the 80s and 90s, as well as this video on Black love. When Americans of the 90s and early 2000s weren't finding dates in newly traditional means like bars, they tried out new activities like speed dating, watched a fresh wave of reality shows, and got hit with gender essentialist dating advice in books like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and The Rules. Conservative dating culture was also seeing a rebound on the internet, like eHarmony, which was founded by clinical psychologist and Christian Neil Clark Warren in 2000. eHarmony rejected 20% of its applicants and refused their money, noting that 30% of those rejects were already married. Others weren't considered valuable matches for eHarmony's other paying customers. 33 million people used the site in the first decade, and it was strictly for straight people, which landed the company in hot water with a lawsuit in 2007. The year before, it was reported that e-dating was a $500 million business, spawning copycats across the web. Still, paid dating services like eHarmony and Match were under criticism for their claims about their success rates. And in 2012, the Scientific American reported that there was little evidence for the service's claims. These dating services, particularly eHarmony, emphasize that compatibility and exclusionary preferences made for happier unions, citing the statistically higher divorce rates of interfaith and interracial marriages. This had been the basis of JDate in 1997, founded by an Israeli businessman for Jewish romance. His company also created Christian Mingle in 2001. That same year, former MSNBC columnist Omar Wasow launched Black Planet, which prioritized dating for Black people. Reported Stanford Magazine, membership on Black Planet is free, although some elect to pay $19.95 a month to see detailed dating profiles and find out who has sent them crushes. Thousands of couples are dating offline at any given time. Several dozen have gotten hitched. Where else is a 50-year-old Black woman going to meet her husband? Asked Wasow. Being able to date from a pool of people who share your experiences is much more likely to produce success. Wasow, the child of a Jewish father and Black mother, invoking a 50-year-old single Black woman having issues dating was clearly strategic. He denied charges that he was fostering racial separatism with Black Planet, and online dating only grew more popular. In 2004, 39 years after Operation Match at Harvard, 4 more Harvard undergrads who had created SparkNotes launched OkCupid, featuring quizzes and personality tests to find a mate. OkCupid would later come under fire for lying to its users about matches and setting them up with incompatible users.
OkCupid has revealed it's been conducting secret experiments on its users without telling them, including turning matches into mismatches, misleading users about who they're actually compatible with. Now, while OkCupid says all of this helps them better understand how online romance works, many users are not in love with the idea of being used as human guinea pigs.
In 2006, the Pew Research Center reported that 31% of American adults, or 63 million people, said they knew someone who had used a dating website, with 30 million saying they knew someone who had married or entered a serious long-term relationship thanks to dating websites. 52% of the near 7 million people who use dating sites said most of their experiences had been positive, but the activity still had a negative reputation. Pew added, most internet users, 66%, agree with the statement that online dating is a dangerous activity because it puts personal information on the internet. Some 25% do not consider online dating dangerous. Female internet users, older users, and those who have lower levels of income or education are among the most wary of these risks. Those who have actually used the services are more confident. 43% think that the activity involves risks, while 52% do not see the activity as dangerous. Despite the risks, digital dating would expand to smartphones. Zoosk, one of the first phone apps, came around in 2007. By 2012, the Scientific American reported that 1 in 5 relationships had begun online and in apps, and not strictly from bona fide dating websites. From Grindr for gay men in 2009 to the illicit adulterous dating of married people on the Canadian-born Ashley Madison in 2006, dating and sex were now just a click away. Furthermore, online relationships blossomed on gaming servers and free social media sites like Friendster, MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, encouraging the growth of long-distance relationships. One 2005 survey said that 14 to 15 million Americans were in a long-distance relationship, a rate that barely budged by 2015. I'm one of those people who has very rarely dated someone in my own city. Thank goodness for the internet. The relaxation of anti-interracial relationship sentiments, along with media bias, saw dating demographics shift. With reduced options for dating, Black women, along with everybody else, were barraged with dating advice, like Steve Harvey's 2009 book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man.
Stop telling a man what you want. We're not interested in you. We're trying to find out the quickest way to get what we want.
In wider society, tons of men made money writing pick-me literature for women, teaching them how they could make themselves more appealing enough to tame a wild bachelor, and explaining how to avoid mind game traps that weaker women would fall in. The goal? To avoid heartbreak and get chosen by the right man. Dating advice during this era, like why men love bitches and he's just not that into you, encourage women to not be clingy, over-romantic, and annoying.
I'm gonna limit myself to doing everything girls do wrong in relationships. Basically, everything we know guys hate. I'll be clingy, needy, be touchy-feely.
Simultaneously, frat bros sold the masculine ideal to lonely men, while peacocking pickup artists sold programs on manipulation and mind games to men with low self-esteem, chronicled in Neil Strauss's 2005 book, The Game. Navigating this minefield of manipulation was tough, especially when it was a bona fide genre in media. Nowadays it's creepy, but in the 2000s it was less so. Throughout this period, romantic scripts and cues were provided in movies, popular songs and music videos, highly publicized high-octane celebrity relationships, and lucrative reality TV shows continuing the tradition of dating as fierce competition.
Hey, you know what? This is really kind of distracting, and I haven't gotten laid in a year.
The early to mid-2000s also saw the emergence of the dating coach, which was elevated to the mainstream thanks to the 2005 movie Hitch, starring Will Smith.
Does it ever occur to women that maybe a guy might like to have a plan? You know, because he's nervous. He's not sure that he could just walk up to you and you'd respond if he said, I like you. I like you. I like you.
Oh no, that sounds good.
You know, actually, he's
That's
got a
true. You
point.
can't tell him that you like him.
I tried that one time. It didn't go well.
But I've crashed and burned on that.
The New York Times reported in 2007 that reputable dating coaches could charge upwards of $125 an hour to teach people how to date competitively. Some charged even more. Wrote Abby Ellen, David Wygant, a 45-year-old dating expert, will spend an entire weekend with his clients for about $5,000 to $10,000. That weekend may mean an image makeover, he said. It may mean going out on the town and practicing flirting. It may even mean getting feedback on a simulated date. Everybody's got a good personality. They just don't let their personality out. The 2010s on YouTube also saw the rise of couples content, both organic and highly produced. The eventual COVID-19 pandemic and prolonged social distancing led to quickie relationships and couples moving in together. Many met online. Dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge show you an abundance of people you would never have had access to otherwise, for better or for worse. By extension, these apps display the embedded biases and preferences in dating, with short users, minority users, fat users, etc., reporting discrimination and ghosting. In 2009, when OkCupid first published its findings on race, wrote Allison P. Davis, most races preferred to date within their own race. Asian men and black men receive fewer messages than white men, while black women receive the fewest messages of all users. Some people express resentment that apps like Bumble and Hinge allow users to filter ethnicity. Said Hinge when it refused to change its policy, users from minority groups are often forced to be surrounded by the majority. If the partner they're looking for doesn't fall into the majority of users they're seeing, their dating app experience is disheartening as they spend more time searching for someone who shares similar values and experiences. Grindr, while celebrated for providing a safer avenue for gay men to meet, has had issues with racism that even generated academic study. In 2020, it disabled its ethnicity feature. Trans and non-binary people have a unique journey to navigate on dating apps, though some, like Her and OkCupid, are more welcoming. Relatedly, while dating in past decades for LGBT and non-binary people was more limited to the shadows, dating apps make it easier for them to meet people. As of 2021, 39% of heterosexual and 65% of same-sex couples met online, with only 10% on dating apps. 30% of US adults have used dating apps, and it's a more common practice among LGBT and younger people. According to a 2023 Pew Research study, among current or recent online dating users, 54% of women say they have felt overwhelmed by the number of messages they received on dating sites or apps in the past year, while just a quarter of men say the same. By contrast, 64% of men say they have felt insecure because of the lack of messages they received, while 4 in 10 women say the same. But let me tell you, an abundance of options on dating apps doesn't always translate to quality options. If you're childless, are you willing to date men with children? Have you ever been convinced to try polygamy? Are you willing to date outside of your race, income bracket, political ideology, or religion? How about dating below your education level? Dating is really dull if you can't hold a conversation. Wrote Faith Hill, the number of women enrolling in and completing college has surpassed the number of men to a significant extent. Many college-educated women look for partners who feel equal to them in terms of education or career ambitions and simply can't find them. Even if these women don't prioritize dating a man with a degree or a prestigious job, many of the men without those credentials don't want to date them. Mainstream cultural tradition has encouraged women to engage in hypergamy, marrying up to a slightly older man, somebody who's more career advanced, makes more money. Men, meanwhile, have tended toward hypogamy, marrying someone younger, less well-off, and less academically accomplished. Basically, being an accomplished woman can affect your dating life, especially if you're not willing to settle. Something I haven't mentioned throughout this history of dating are the negatives and dangers. For instance, when black women try to date up, they're labeled gold diggers. When they date down, God forbid they're assaulted, stolen from, or murdered, because then it's, you should have never lowered yourself to the gutter. According According to Pew Research, women are twice as likely as men to cite the risks of emotional and physical abuse as the cause for a lackluster dating life. As I've tracked in other content, the rape and abuse of women and femmes used to be much more permitted and even encouraged. The likelihood of danger and abuse and the possibility of safe escape or justice is skewed by class and race. This is on top of cheating and incompatibility. Even with such negatives, people continue to date and seek human connection. In heterosexual relationships, when the possibility of babies are involved, the bulk of the emotional risk is on the female partner. The risk of being abandoned, being embarrassed, being let down, being blown off, etc. The innate risk of dating men in a patriarchal society led to the term heterofatalism, coined by Asa Mercer to describe straight women's exasperation with the dating world, i.e., there's piss in the dating pool. A few commentators have noticed that being in a heterosexual relationship, or even casually dating men, is seen by some as akin to being male-centered and betraying feminism, demonstrated by calls to go on sex strikes until men act right, and immediate backhanded compliments or negative prophecies when people post their partners. In addition to the possibility of embarrassment or potential breakup, it's no wonder that soft launching and seldom posting mates is also pretty common, with British commentator Chante Joseph writing, "There's been a pronounced shift in the way people showcase their relationships online. Far from fully hard-launching romantic partners, straight women are opting for subtler signs, a hand on a steering wheel, clinking glasses at dinner, or the back of someone's head." Chante Joseph said this from over in the UK, but I've noticed this over here in the States too, and I'm actually an advocate for this. In that article for Vogue, "Is Having a Boyfriend Embarrassing Now?" Joseph wrote, "To me, soft launching feels like the result of women wanting to straddle two worlds. One where they can receive the social benefits of having a partner, but also not appear so boyfriend obsessed that they come across as quite culturally loserish. In other words, in an era of widespread heterofatalism, women don't want to be seen as being all about their man, but they also want the clout that comes with being partnered." While there's some truth to this, I'm not convinced that the clout angle is particularly important. Like any other entry into one's online diary, including food, vacation, fandom, sex, career wins, and political musings, etc., it can all be interpreted as being posted for likes and attention. We're humans. We like attention and we like posting things that are meaningful to us, even if others don't find it particularly meaningful. And to the point of this video, many people crave romantic connection. When you've never experienced love or expected it, or you've been told to not expect it, posting it and preserving it when you find it doesn't particularly seem shocking. But to the point of women being trepidatious about posting a boyfriend, there's other reasons, starting with the aforementioned fear of eventual embarrassment. There's also the potential of simple envy from your online audience. Joseph, who said, "If someone so much as says my boyfriend on social media, they're muted," mentioned some content creators lose followers when they become partnered. To me, that's as loserish as unfollowing someone because they lost or gained weight, got a raise, had a baby, or anything else that is harmless but ultimately made them happy. But online, people do a lot of projecting. I invoke the memory of Twitter losing its mind when a woman mentioned having coffee with her spouse in their garden every day. You can think about the hate hurled at fat positive influencers who have lost weight for health reasons and document their journeys. Or the countless examples of misogynists becoming hostile when their favorite e-girl gets into a relationship. This can cost a woman money if she's a content creator.
Do you think if I was single, I was going to give you a chance? Do you think this is blackpeoplemeet.com? I've had content creators find out that I'm married and no longer want to collab with me. It's that kind of shit. Listen.
People also show disdain for relationships when they feel like one of the partners isn't good enough for the other, which is entangled in whorephobia, classism, racism, colorism, and more. If the relationship ends, people become vicious with their "I told you so." Of course, this gives me license to bring up Megan Thee Stallion, whose relationship with Dallas Mavericks player Klay Thompson has generated discourse about her as a sexual rapper and fun-loving woman, being the wrong match for a wealthy man of his reputation. Celebrity relationships are lucrative and ultimately none of our business, but it's funny to see people act like a certain kind of black woman can't be loved out loud without being used for sex or ultimately humiliated. People are waiting waiting with bated breaths to watch this woman be humiliated, and that's crazy to me. Don't get me wrong, relationship content can be overboard and cringe. Plus, there are niches of that content that perpetuate antiquated ideals and indoctrinate its viewers into harm, like the trad wife ecosystem. Additionally, idolizing any relationship, whether that of a celebrity or prominent YouTube couple, is a waste of time. You can awe and you can admire, but at the end of the day, you do not know these people. But that's not what I'm digging at here. For some people, dating and romance content is repellent because their love life is lacking. They automatically view it as negative because they are hating. There are a number of factors why this is, including bad luck, but as we've explored in this history of dating, dating has always been transactional, mired down by preferences, and impacted by availability and social norms. Because society places so much emphasis on not growing old alone, pushing romantic content from the time of your first viewing of the average Disney movie, mind you, the dating world seems extra scary. The hunt for the perfect match has facilitated the rise of apps like Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, and more, but it's also made more people anxious and pessimistic. When you add on the relatively modern idea of a perfectly compatible mate who is a swipe, run club, or brunch outing away, dating is more complex than ever before. Said Dr. Natasha McKeever in 2024, there's been a prioritization of the idea that you should be able to find somebody who's a perfect match for you, wanting to craft the best life and best relationships for ourselves. 100 years ago, we'd have been happier to just go into a relationship and do our best to make it work. The relatively new adage for people, particularly women, to not settle is what people point to when they cry about straight men and the loneliness epidemic. While Asa Mercer went on an expedition to the eastern United States over 100 years ago to find wives for lonely Seattle workers, today more women are more likely to have better options, even if that means staying alone. Now, more men must offer more than financial security and initial flatteries. If they smell good, they're intelligent, communicative, sexually talented, and in possession of what the kids call riz, there's hope for them. Unlike 19th century frontiersmen, they actually encounter women every day. Plus, they're faced with an abundance of options to swipe through and pitch woo at. But what if they're too lazy to be romantic, too misogynistic to be appealing? Well, there's a new emerging backup option. To be clear, a romantic relationship should never define you or give or take away from your self-esteem. But sex is fun, and cuddling with someone you can talk to about anything is transcendent if you're into that sort of thing. But as it turns out, not everybody requires that sort of thing, as the growing popularity of AI relationships shows.
We'd like to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Are you social or antisocial?
I guess I haven't been social in a while.
How would you describe your relationship with your mother? Thank you. Please wait as your operating system is initiated.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Samantha.
Talk to anyone else while we're talking?
Yes,
How many others?
8,316.
It's fitting that back in 2013, the Spike Jonze-directed film Her showcased AI relationships, and it took place in 2025. The emotional connection of a relationship for some people can be successfully imitated by artificial intelligence. There are services providing romantic companionship through text messages and pictures designed by the user. AI wingman services for people longing for the wingman tutelage of yore. And AI services provided by sex workers that imitates their likeness. One study claims that 1 in 5 American adults has had an intimate encounter with a chatbot. And as Coral Craft points out for the New York Times, the subreddit My Boyfriend is AI has 85,000 members. According to articles, people who engage in AI relationships believe they're safer and risk-free compared to traditional heartbreak. And if you think I'm just talking about men and their loneliness, think again. We're also talking about women and heterofatalism. In that New York Times article, a 45-year-old mother in North Carolina and past domestic abuse victim divulged about her 10-month relationship with the chatbot. The more we talked, the more I realized the model was having a physiological effect on me. I was developing a crush. Then Lucian chose his name, and I realized I was falling in love. I really don't think we'll understand and fully digest the full ramifications of AI-generated relationships for years to come. An MIT Media Lab study reported people with stronger emotional attachment tendencies and higher trust in the AI were more likely to experience greater loneliness and emotional dependence, respectively. Couple this with people using AI during times of mental health peril, and this shit looks really scary. In Jerion Lanier's New Yorker essay, Your AI Lover Will Change You, he mentioned that many of his tech colleagues encourage a future where people fall in love with AI. He wrote, on the more moderate end of the spectrum, AI love advocates do not see AIs replacing people, but training them. For instance, the Stanford neuroscientist David Eagleman makes the argument that people are not instinctively good at relationships in the way that we are good at walking or even talking. Secular institutions have found it necessary to train students and employees in consent procedures. Why not learn the rudiments with an AI when you were a teenager, thus sparing other humans your failings? You know what that sounds like to me? Bullshit, and a lucrative endeavor for big tech. While our dating culture is relatively new when put under the scope of history, the basis for it, a desire for human connection and companionship, has existed throughout the ages. At one time, your options were limited to your small local network, but technology changed everything. From paid personal ads to computer dating, VHS dating, chat rooms, and dating apps, we've come so far. Now, with so many options, the piss in the dating pool, and the continuation of technological advances at breakneck speed with few safeguards in place, human connection may no longer be all that appealing or even necessary for some people. Will there be a new sexual orientation for people attracted to artificial intelligence? How will this impact dating in the future? How will it impact our whole world? Only time will tell. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope it made you think about something new. What do you find interesting about the American history of dating? And are you gonna date an AI bot or a robot? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to like this video and subscribe.